How does the queen of plot twists come up with her page-turning ideas?
And then I'll just kind of shock myself by writing something at the end of a scene and I'll be like, ooh!
New York Times bestselling author Sally Hepworth talks about her writing techniques and habits, plus what beloved character will show up in her next novel. Hi, it's Angie from HEC Books, where authors reveal their tips and tricks for writing. Now here's the entertaining Sally Hepworth. And remember how this interview started with her detailing the comedic beginning of her U.S. book tour? Watch until the end when she talks about how that could end up in the pages of her next novel. What all of us love about your books are these great plot twists and these things that just catch you off guard. They just, oh my goodness. Do those just come naturally to you, or do you have to really work on those? Do they come at the beginning or as you're putting the idea together?
It's funny because I've only, again, it's a little bit like when I discovered that I write crime. I discovered recently that I'm kind of known for my twists, and I thought, ooh, better make sure I have a few twists in the next one. And it's not something that I think about in advance, even though, and Jane Harper is an Australian crime author. She's a good friend of mine, and she has done a TED talk on how to plot. So watch it. I always say, when people ask me how to do it, I say, go and watch that. She knows what to do. But I really tend to, while I will plot out a few turning points along the way, I very rarely stick to them. And most of the really good twists, I think, that I've come up with have kind of been on a whim.
Really?
Yeah, because
that's surprising.
I have ADHD. I have diagnosed ADHD, but I'm very cliche about it. I'm very easily bored. And if I've planned something in a book, I'm like, well, I know what's going to happen. And then I'll just kind of shock myself by writing something at the end of a scene, and I'll be like, ooh! And then sometimes I think, no, that's not going to work, and I'll delete it. Or other times I'm like, oh, yes. You know, so it's often just a game of trying to stop myself from being bored, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
So you don't, I knew that you, because you do outline.
I do.
But not necessarily the surprises.
No, like I will try, and often what I outline will lead me in the direction of it. But so much more happens in a book than what you can contain in an outline. Right. And so it, you know, certainly it helps me to outline for the first sort of third, but by then I've made so many changes that the rest of it is just, it's it all kind of remains in here. And I use a writing program called Scrivener, in case there is any aspiring writers or writers in here, which helps me to keep, it's like a storyboard, but inside a computer program, which kind of helps you to manage the madness. But yeah, my best twists, I'm sure, have come from the gut in terms of, rather than something I've plotted out before.
Yeah. So you're currently building a writer's cabin behind your house. Within this writer's cabin, you have a television. And why is that television there, Sally?
I've been asked quite a bit if I have any writing habits or rituals, and I've kept saying no. And then someone reminded me that I do indeed have a writing ritual at 4:00 every afternoon, and that is that I watch Judge Judy. I don't know if it helps me with the writing, but that is what I do. At 3:55, I make myself a cup of tea. And then I come and I watch it, and it's such a delight that it is also on at 4:00 here. And almost every day my schedule has allowed me to watch Judge Judy.
You know, there is a lot of family dysfunctionality there.
Well, there is. That's true. I don't think she's ever directly, you know, informed a plot.
Yeah.
But I think she just sort of oozes out of me now. Like, I know what she's going to say. I just love her. So that is one of my writing rituals. I don't know if it is helpful to my writing, but try it if you're an aspiring author. Really, what wrong can come of it?
With so many of your books, you do not shy away from the gritty topics, and they become part of your characters, and they're what make your characters so real and believable. In this book, there's mental health issues, obviously, as we talked about, but you write it in a way that makes you think about what you would do in the wife's spot, and I love that because it really makes you think about things in a different way. So thank you for that. Very interesting.
You're welcome. I love that too, though. That is, for me, I think we just want to feel things, don't we? And we want to experience life in a safe way. And we want to experience a little bit like Christian calls them my nasty shows, when I like to watch those shows like Law and Order SVU or, dark.
I was wondering where you're going with
murderous
that for a second.
Why do you watch those nasty shows? And it's because we want to feel,
Right. Yeah.
And I can't remember why I'm telling you that.
Well, no, I was going to say is, so for Pippa in this book, we watch her go from, she has what people think is the perfect marriage. In fact, she feels kind of bad about it, right? Because
well, she's embarrassed because she knows that the fastest way to bond, and women are always bonding by complaining about their husbands. And so she's left out because her husband's so wonderful and she's got nothing to complain about. So she feels a bit annoyed about it.
But the crazy thing is, we watch her go from that to this complete, psychological unraveling paranoia. And it's fascinating to be in that seat with her. How did you step into her psyche to do that? That has to be hard. Is that difficult for you? Are those tough days when you're, especially when she gets paranoid?
It's exactly that. I step into what would this be if it was me? And I'm thinking, I am Pippa and Gabe is Christian and I have just discovered this, and how would I process it? And what thoughts would be popping in and out of my head? And I think one thing that's so interesting in books that I have read is when people are dealing with this stuff, these really big life questions, that life doesn't stop either, that you can be in the middle of contemplating life and death, but then your children come up and they, have bubble gum stuck in their hair, or, they've got a school project that's due the next day, or your mother calls and she's, had a fall or whatnot. And that, seeing that on the page or on the screen as a reader and a watcher, that's what I want to see. Yeah. And that's what my life would be if that, I could step into that role. So really I'm just doing what the reader does, is I'm stepping into this fictional situation and watching what would happen. Yeah. Yeah. But I make it worse.
Right.
That's the number one rule of make it worse.
Right. I need to know what's next. What can we look forward to? What's coming up next?
I have just delivered my next book to my editor. So it's done. Yeah. I mean, done is such a nice word, isn't it? I've already seen that it's come back to me. It's already in my inbox to do copy edits. I'm still on tour. And I have to get back and write my new book, The Layover. But
I'll read it. I'd read that.
It's good, right? I don't know who's going to die yet. But it's probably Mark. Yeah. I have to figure out how to jam in a family angle because I have to have the family dysfunction. But anyway, that's a conversation to have with my editor. But I have delivered my next book. It is, of course, about dysfunctional families. This dysfunctional family are 3 women who grew up together in foster care, and they call themselves sisters, even though they're not biologically related. And at the beginning of the book, they are adults, and they get a phone call from a policewoman saying that a body has been found under the rural, idyllic foster home where they grew up, and they have to go back there and tell the story of the idyllic upbringing that they had there and figure out who the body is.
Is this the book that we have a character come back in that we've seen before?
Yes. Yes, there is a little cameo from Fern from the...
Yeah.
It's a prequel, so it's the cameo is from before The Good Sister started.
I'm excited about it. Yeah. 1 year from now.
Yeah, it should be this time, yeah.
Okay. You're always a joy to talk to.
You're a joy.
Until next year.
Yes.
Thanks for watching. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed this conversation, and keep an eye out for my next interview with Brooke Kroger as we talk about her book, Undaunted: How Women Changed American Journalism. Get notified when that conversation comes out by clicking subscribe.